What's going on, everybody? So, week 4 has come and gone and done its thing, right? Right. So, I went game by game, note by note, and I'm just going to break down how I think this week went as far as team performances, player performances, and just overall how things are. So, again, more of a scripted type setup, but my words, obviously, my notes, my own thing. Here, let's see. I don't even know what the hell's desktop this thing. Yeah, it don't show shit. How about I actually grab the right desktop? Desktop 1. See, there's my notes right there. You can actually see my recording program right there. So, yeah. That's my notes. That's what you're going to see me reading off of. I literally just typed out game by game by game as they played out. So, here we go. Jags versus the Bengals. Jaguars, Trevor, first of all, score 21-24, Bengals winning the game. Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence has potential, but is just not making amazing decisions. Give him time to grow and build around the guy, and we'll see what he can do. Defensively, the Jags are just not great. They showed some sign of good play here and there, but still have a lot of things to fix, to say the least. They did stay in the game, but honestly, it wasn't because they were playing amazingly. Sad for them. From the Bengals side of the ball, considering their opponent, this should have been a much more dominant performance, and they were showing signs that there's a lot more weakness than what we've been seeing. Fighting that much against a team that has this many issues just leaves questions to where they stand on both sides of the ball. Granted, they came out with a win, so good on them, but this isn't a win to hold your head up high on, because it was a last-minute, oh thank God moment to finish it off. That really just, that lays out the Bengals and the Jaguars game. It really does. The Bengals won. The Jaguars lost. The Bengals should have been the winning team in here, so, I mean, what else do you say? The Bengals didn't play amazingly, and the Jaguars tried to capitalize off of it and damn near did. Such is life. On to the next. Titans-Jets. My fucking God, this was one of the biggest shocker games for me. I fucking said it last week, man. I fucking said it that the fucking Titans have got defensive problems, okay? I had a couple people private message me, too, and they were like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're not that bad. Titans 24, Jets 27. Jets were winless. An 0-3 team. Robert Saleh is doing his best with the trash that is sitting in front of him. Just saying. And I'm not trying to knock dicks in the dirt with the Jets because they're a complete rebuilding organization, okay? So let's just go Titans. So let's break down just how fucked up this game was. Ryan Tannehill goes 30 of 49 for 298 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry goes 33 for 157 yards rushing and a touchdown, and they got a pick for a touchdown. And they had the ball for 40 minutes and 57 seconds and lost. Like, what? I can tell you exactly what I said last week. This defense has some big questions to answer. When you let the winless Jets get 27 points on you and win, that's a big problem. Also, when you take Ryan Tannehill off of the script of the game and force him to throw the damn ball 49 times, you are not going to win. Tannehill has proven that the Titan running play action scheme puts him in a position of success. That doesn't include throwing the ball that damn much. Tannehill showed in Miami that he just is not a reliable winning quarterback when forced to chuck it that many damn times down the field. This is but this really comes down to the defense and just letting this one get away from them. That's the truth. It really is. The Jets. Look, let's just not get carried away. Zach Wilson, 21 of 34 for 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Not a bad showing for Zach Wilson, given how bad he's been doing. Okay, he's not been terrible, but he's not been amazing by any stretch. They had 66 total rushing yards with 5 different fucking players, and although they kept the pressure on the struggling defense, they had to win it in a field goal nearly at the end of overtime. So good for them that they got their first win of the season, but I don't see many of this for this team this year. There's just too many problems to overcome. Again, it's because the Jets are a rebuilding organization. It's hard to have high expectations for a rebuilding team, okay? It really is. Lions, Bears. Expectations versus reality with the Lions are two very different things. Jared Goff actually wasn't the problem in this game. Their defense giving up 171 rushing yards and 209 passing yards is not a formula for success. They only built up 90 yards with 3 players rushing and 299 yards passing. Having Jared Goff throw the ball beyond 35 times, being 38, is also not a formula for success. He's not a high throwing profile quarterback. They've got a lot of work to do. They do a lot. Bears, hell, capitalize on the poor play of your opponent. That's really what this game has come down to for them. For all the screams to have Justin Fields be the starter, no. I'm sorry, folks, but he's just not ready yet. He's not a high-quality caliber quarterback yet. Give the kid time. Seriously. You throw him in halfway through a game last week, you've done a couple of trick plays with him, and then all of a sudden, he gets his second start, and it's like everybody just has these expectations he's going to be amazing. No touchdowns, 1 pick, and they literally had to run the ball down the Lions' throat to get scores on the board. That tells me that he's just not ready yet. I still see glaring issues with their secondary as well, though. The Lions are a bad team, and the Bears' defense should have absolutely feasted on that offense, even more than what they did. Yes, they won, but it wasn't as dominant as I figured it would be. 100% the truth. I truthfully assumed, wrongly, that the Bears were just going to chew the fucking Lions up like bubblegum and spit them out on the sidewalk. They did not do that. They won, yes. They kept them to 14 points, yes. But that is not the domination I was expecting. Colts, Dolphins. I just don't even know what to say about this one. Colts 27, Dolphins 17. Colts, this isn't meant to be a knock against the Colts, but going against what I see as a mediocre team doesn't scream that this game shows tons of growth for me. Yes, they beat what is likely the better team than them, and that's great because it shows growth with a team that's been struggling. They dominated every single stat, including penalties, which obviously is not a good thing. So again, that's good overall aside from the penalties. Carson Wentz actually played well for this game. Jonathan Taylor ran well for this game, and they won. In the end, the entire team needs to build on this win and continue to grow so they can take on and win against even better opponents. That's 100% the truth. The Dolphins are a mediocre team. They beat a pretty evenly mediocre team because the Colts have not been great thus far this year, obviously. So they came in and beat what should have been the better team. So that's good for the Colts. They weren't amazing, but it's something to grow on. Something to build on top of. The Dolphins, it's sad to see what this team was last year compared to what they are this year. As I said last week, the Dolphins show sign of being decent, but then there's some underlying issues that they've got to sort out if they want to get ahead of the curve and be better than just mediocre. Going against a team like the Colts should give them a better shot at a truly dominating style of game. Anything but that happened here, though. They were absolutely dominated in everything but third down efficiency. You can't win games against great teams if you can't even squeeze out a win against a bad team. The truth is, Jacoby Brissett played a good game, but they couldn't run the ball for shit, and the Colts squared up on them and beat them. The Dolphins just have a lot of work. They have a lot to work on in multiple places to fix. This was an interesting game. I have been questioning the Browns secondary, and I gotta tell you, Browns versus Vikings. Browns 14, Vikings 7. Yeah, that screams defensive battle, okay? You've got 3 hours, so you've got 4 quarters of gameplay, okay? 45 minutes a quarter, and it equates out to 3 hours of total gameplay? Fuck me, dude. When you only have basically 3 touchdowns worth of scores from both teams, that's defense. Defense and smash mouth ball. That's really what it is. Vikings, defensively, they played a very strong running back squad, and it showed. Hard to stop 2 guys who run the ball like they mean to dislodge the head from their opponent's neck. Offensively, they just fell short across the board. And I kind of went out of order because the Browns were the visitor, and I tried to do visitor and home. But whatever. if you can't score against a team that has potential secondary issues, and you're known as being a passing team, that's a big problem. Their running game was basically non-existent, with 5 people carrying the ball for a total of 65 yards, and your QB goes 20 for 37, a touchdown and a pick. That's not going to cut it if you intend on actually winning games. I'm sorry, man. The Vikings they got outplayed. They just did. Now, the Vikings defense didn't do bad against the Browns. Okay, they didn't. I'm not saying that they did. But the Browns, defensively, I still think that they have a little room to grow in the secondary, but just a little. But as the season is progressing, they're starting to show signs of life that a lot of fans hoped that they would. They certainly did their job against a team that's all about tossing the ball all over the place if they choose to. A very low-scoring defensive game, and they were obviously up for the challenge, and that's a great sign for Browns fans. Offensively, they have one hell of a running back pair, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And they're willing to cram the ball down the throats of their opponents and just eat up the clock and build decent play-action scheme off of it when it's available. It's literally just old-school smash-mouth football, and the Browns are playing it because it works extremely well for their team, and that is 100% the truth. Legit, the Browns just outplayed the Vikings in every fucking way. I don't give a damn what the stats look like, okay? I don't care. They just literally outplayed. They defensively outplayed them, they offensively outplayed them, and they beat the Vikings. Just squared up on them and punched them in the mouth and called them a bitch. Washington football team and the Atlanta Falcons. Again, for the love of God, would somebody please just name the Washington team already? I don't care if they call them the dildos at this point. There's literally no need to break down both teams here. Washington won 34-30. These are two struggling teams that made for an entertaining game, but knowing that unless there's a miracle from a higher power involved, neither one of these is most likely going to make any close reach to the postseason this year. Again, I'll come back to the fact that the Washington defense is better than what they're truly showing thus far, and that's really the only thing that I can give. It's the truth. The Falcons are a mess. The Washington football team is a mess. And aside from an end-of-game play that was just a highlight reel kind of touchdown play, what else do you want, man? I mean, it was just a fucking shootout between two shit teams. Texans-Bills. Now, last week I said that the Texans were a bit of a surprise being what they were, and I mean that. With Tyrod Taylor in there, I mean that. Otherwise, not so much. And even still, their defense going against a potential Super Bowl contending offense, this was a true fashion. This is exactly what the Texans are right now, going against a super winning team. Sad truth. I don't need to break down both teams in depth here. Did anyone really expect anything different from the Texans-Bills? By the way, the Texans got beat 40-0. David Mills, quarterback for the Texans right now because Tyrod Taylor's out on an injury, isn't ready to be a starting quarterback yet. It's showing with 3 picks thrown, and the Texans defense just couldn't handle that Bills offense at all. It truly shows how much of a mess the Texans are when they go against a true contending team. It's just that simple, just like I said. Another shocker game. This weekend, man, this is not the weekend to be a gambler. I can tell you that. I mean, unless you're just a risky son of a bitch. You're risking it for that biscuit, baby. Giants-Saints. Giants 27, Saints 21. Giants, I'm going to be honest here. If it weren't for the Saints defense not playing well, the Giants wouldn't have won this game. You can't ask Daniel Jones to throw the ball 40 damn times and expect him to win for your team consistently. Saquon Barkley only producing 5 yards is just not good, and just not enough to take the pressure off of Jones. Granted, Saquon Barkley had the touchdown run at the end of in overtime to take it, and boom, done, have a nice day. But that doesn't mean that Saquon's playing well right now. Sorry. Until they can establish the running game better, I can't see how they can expect Daniel Jones or any other younger QB to get wins for this team with any consistency. Yes, they beat the Saints in this one, which is honestly more of a shocker than an established winning team, but this doesn't mean that they've turned a leaf on their issues yet. This is something that the team can build on. This is something that can build up the morale of the locker room. Yes, 100%. But them beating the Saints does not make them a good team. That means the Saints played a really shitty game. That's really the truth. Because the Saints are just a better team in this one. And they got beat by a shit team. Where does that put you? Does that mean the shit team is amazing all of a sudden? Or does that mean that the good team, or at least mediocre to good team, had a really bad game? Hopefully it's not a long-term problem for the Saints. Saints, I'll say this. The first half of the game nearly left me shocked that the Giants were pressing the game as hard as they were and left as they were against a pretty solid squad. The second half showed that they were all about that comeback life. Then they let the Giants get it back to lose in overtime. Against a shit team, this is just embarrassing to say the least. Just when I say that I'm feeling like the Saints are here to prove people wrong, well, they're here to prove me wrong. I get that they've got their gadget plays with Taysom Hill, but when Jameis Winston is 17 of 23 for a touchdown and no picks, and Taysom Hill is throwing the one pick that they had, it's time to rethink your strategy. Hell, Jameis is playing well. Alvin Kamara played great. The defense is apparently not... And the defense is apparently ready to not close out a game. Lots of work left on this defense. That's the truth. 100% the truth. Now, I will say this. The next one does have a bit more of a description because I got to really fully watch this game. Because again, Chiefs are my home team. But that doesn't mean I'm a homer on them, okay? It doesn't. But there's more description because I really got to watch this one more in depth. Chiefs versus Eagles. Chiefs win 42-30. So let's cover the Chiefs. Defense is still a mess. Too much soft coverage, poor man-to-man coverage, terrible zone play, and although improved this game, not near enough pressure on the quarterback. I still say that Chris Jones needs to get moved, okay? They put him on the outside. They need to put him back at defensive tackle. I think I actually say that in here. They've got to start thinking about putting Chris Jones back at defensive tackle rather than playing him on the outside. He's just not as dominant out there and looks out of place. They really let the Eagles stay in this game far more than they should have. The offense thus far is looking as expected. Yes, Mahomes threw another pick, which is still not what anyone would expect, but it's likely. But it's like he actually reverted a bit with his passing. It's almost like it's like I got a frog in my throat is what it's like. It's almost like he's a little too overconfident right now, and it's kind of biting him in the butt. They're still establishing the run with that rebuilt line and starting to show it that they'd rather run shallow and deep crossing routes off of that. It's a matter of maintaining it or not that's really going to be the question. They played a team that's fixing a lot of issues, and they beat a team that they should have. Yippee. It's the truth. They should have beat the Eagles. Sorry. Now let's see them beat a contender without major defensive struggles. Then I'll be believing in what they're doing. Right now, I don't question the motivation. It's the follow-through, and considering what we've seen that they can do, there's pretty high expectations for them to live up to. So again, that's not me being a homer. That's me being honest and real about it. The Chiefs have got a lot of defensive issues, and they're trying to completely change their offensive scheme so teams can't build off of the last 2 or 3 years worth of film. I mean, if all of a sudden you come out and you're cramming the ball down their fucking throat, running the ball and doing a bunch of play action and crossing routes, that's really going to fuck with people, okay? Eagles, as with the Chiefs, a major lack of defense. Although when the Chiefs' offense is playing well, they make a lot of defenses look potentially worse than what they actually are. This was not the case in this game, though. Their defense just didn't play very well whatsoever. Sure, they got some pressure on the QB. But when you give up 200 yards on the ground, 271 yards in the air, you're most likely not going to win, even with a pick. Their offense in a hurry-up actually looked pretty damn decent, but Hurts is still struggling with making good reads under pressure. Against a better defense, I don't see Hurts playing well. And that's a knock on the Chiefs, because the Chiefs yes, they did get to Jalen Hurts here and there, but they weren't putting just tremendous amounts of pressure on him, so he did have time here and there to really kind of do things. So I just don't see Hurts playing well against a more dominant defense, but it does help his confidence when there's not a ton of pressure in his face and he has time to make decisions. There were times that the Chiefs' defense did put pressure on him, and his potential for bad decisions was definitely shown. I'll give them the credit that their defense did surprisingly show some minor signs of improvement. But honestly, I don't see enough to see them as a contending team from what I saw in this game. Certainly not enough to be dominant against the likes of Dallas in their own division at this point. On to Panthers and the Cowboys. Dallas. Panthers 28, Cowboys 36. This is one of my games of interest this week. Cowboys, their formula for success is to not make winning the game Dak Prescott's responsibility all of the damn time like the Seahawks do with Russell Wilson. They absolutely followed the successful formula with this game. 245 yards rushing and only 188 yards passing for 4 touchdowns is how this team is built to win. To top it off, the defense really pressed what's been showing to be a pretty decent offense to make some very serious mistakes. Good on them for that. Sorry, my vision's a little screwy. The Cowboys offense is exactly what I expected to see, especially after 3 weeks of seeing this. This is exactly what I expected to see out of them. And that's a good thing for this team. Now they need to maintain it on both sides and move forward, and they'll give the NFC a run for its money, no pun intended, because of their running yards. I'll give some final thoughts about that particular issue, hopefully, at the end of the video. Panthers, offensively, it's bad when your QB is the leading scoring player, but also the reason that you're losing the game at the end. Unfortunately, Sam Darnold showed in this game that his old Jets ways are still in there somewhere if you pressure him enough. 113 yards rushing with 5 different players and 301 yards passing, but 2 picks and a missed field goal are just deflating killers for a team's morale. Defensively, they just couldn't seem to stop the run for shit, and against the Cowboys, that's a disastrous issue to have. I think a Catholic's pullout game is stronger than the Panthers' run defense was in this game. Just saying. If this is what is to come against contending teams, they're in for one very, very long season. Last week, man, I was up on the Panthers. I really was. But this week, they went against a very, very solid offensive team with a fairly decent defense, and that defense just fucking beat the shit out of them. I mean, didn't dominate them, but beat the hell out of them. Interesting game. Interesting game for multiple reasons. Seahawks versus 49ers. Seahawks 28, 49ers 21. Seahawks, this is the kind of game I was talking about, not forcing Russell Wilson to try to be the only thing to win games for the Seahawks. He was 16 of 23 for only 149 yards and 2 touchdowns with no picks. He looked comfortable for the majority of the game because they were actually able to run the ball well enough to take the pressure off of him. 105 yards on the ground with 4 different players certainly takes that pressure off of him. The defense is still somewhat in question, to say the least, but at least there was a little improvement in this game. Also, Garoppolo going out with a calf injury certainly made things a little bit easier to handle, but that 49ers offense isn't a punk setup either. So even with Trey Lance on minimal snaps having to come in, they still had to stand against it, and they did. There's still a lot of issues to shore up with the defense, but at least they had life in this game. 100% the truth. If you can run the ball and you've got decent defense, you aren't laying everything on Russell Wilson's shoulders to try to have to win the game. I mean, did he? Yes. But he wasn't in that, oh my God, this is just, I have to fly from fucking behind the entire fucking game. Holy Jesus Christ, we're fucked. No, I mean, it was a contending game. So good. 49ers, as I said last week, I did not mean to put a jinx on this. Jimmy Garoppolo has not been able to stay healthy. That's a huge problem when your franchise starting quarterback can't finish a season. Forcing Trey Lance to come in and try to finish a game after Jimmy Garoppolo went 14 of 23 for 165 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 pick didn't make his life any easier. Sadly, the defense showed issues that I stated as well. Their heart and soul is just not there with them anymore, and they just don't have the intensity that they've had in the last few years. In a perfect world, one would have hoped that Trey Lance would come in. God, sorry about this. One would have hoped that Trey Lance would come in, get more time to get comfortable with the system, but he finished 9 of 18 for 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Even with the team putting up 143 yards rushing, it just wasn't enough. Not a terrible outing for having to finish it out, but just not enough to get the win. That really is the truth. I mean, between both quarterbacks, you're talking over 300 fucking yards of passing, which is good, and 143 yards of rushing. That's very good. That's usually going to be a formula to win. The Seahawks just played better. Cardinals, Rams. Another game of interest. Two unbeaten NFC West teams. Divisional fucking game. I mean, one of the best divisions, if not the best division in the NFL right now. Cardinals, Rams. Cardinals 37, Rams 20. Right? The Cardinals, well, as I said, one stacked roster. They looked for real and then some. The Rams smacked the Bucks, and now the Cardinals absolutely smacked the Rams. I said that if they were a contending team, I said that if they were a contending team for the NFC West division, it was going to be, if there were a contending team, my God, I'm sorry. I said if there were a contending team for the NFC West division against the Rams, it was this team. Their defense just teed off on the Rams offense. Their offense just had their way with that very stacked Rams defense. Murray hit 24 of 32 for 268 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and they hit 216 yards with 5 different rushers and no turnovers. And a game plan that just absolutely spelled success against the Rams. Not much else to say. I said it last week that the Cardinals, if they can hold it together, they're a young roster, but goddamn are they stacked, man. God, stacked with talent, just stacked. The Rams. Their first offensive outing just looked completely out of whack for the majority of the game. Stafford hit 26 of 41. 26 of 41, 280 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Overall, a pretty okay performance from him with how he's played in the prior 3 weeks of play. They rushed for 121 yards with 3 different rushers and put up 20 points. Against quite a few other teams, this would spell a pretty successful day, but against the Cardinals defense, it just wasn't nearly enough. And honestly, the Rams defense just couldn't come up with an answer for that Cardinals offense at all the entire game. Overall, they just got outplayed on both sides of the ball and lost because of it. Is their season over? Hell no. No. They're still a very, very, very stacked team with a shit ton of potential. It's true. When I get to the Packers part, I'll go into what I'm thinking here. Steelers-Packers. Steelers 17, Packers 27. Look, I said it. I said that with the Steelers not having not having any kind of real run game, and that there's no measure. Oh my God. I can't read or speak right now. I'm very sorry. I said that the Steelers not having any real run game and that there's no measure of success for the team with that. Well, Ben went 26 of 40 for 232 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and only 16 rushing yards. If you make Ben Roethlisberger throw more than 35 times in a game, they are not going to win very many games at all. It's just a sad truth. And I'll say that the defense did good enough to keep the Packers below 30 points, and that sounds all fine and dandy, but they could only muster up 17 points against them. Not a good game for the Steelers. It's just not. The Steelers' defense is there, man. I mean, they've got the right formula. If they can keep a hold of injuries, they've got the right formula to really do what they need to do the majority of the time. Okay? Now, going to the Packers, I'm just going to say this. I kept seeing posts, oh my God, the Packers are falling apart. Oh my God, this was the Steelers' first possession and first score. Oh my God, the Packers are going to lose to the Steelers. I've fucking been saying that the fucking Packers are trash and that they're just, people are going to figure them out and blah, 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 blah. And here I sit just watching, just waiting for it. Oh my God, the Steelers took an early lead. The Packers suck. Oh wait, they won. Right? Yeah, Aaron Rodgers went 20 of 36 for 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, and they rushed for 131 yards. I mean, not a bad day. As far as the defense, they contained the one-trick pony Steelers to 17 points and 282 total yards of offense. So you really can't complain too much about the win unless you just hate the Packers. They still need work, but they're playing decent ball as of right now. Are they Super Bowl contenders in a perfect world? Sure. They could be. But against what else is in the NFC? No. They're not going to beat the Cardinals. They're not going to beat the Rams. I don't even honestly see them beating the Cowboys in a playoff scenario. As of right now, I don't. Ravens, Broncos. Ravens 23, Broncos 7. Another game of interest. And the reason being was because I wanted to see what the Broncos would do against an actual contending team. Okay, because I don't think anybody is going to argue the fact that unless something really insane happens, that the Ravens are not going to be in the fucking playoffs in some fashion. So I really wanted to see, because the Broncos being at the head of the fucking division, or right there at the cusp of being the head of the division, they'd also played 3 trash-ass teams. So it was just kind of like, eh. But they had a good management of quarterback position. Ravens. So the Ravens are exactly what I expected. Lamar Jackson went 22 of 37 for 316 yards and one touchdown. And they rushed for 101 yards with 4 different players. Their defense is basically dominated the Broncos for the game, as I honestly expected they would. With the running back issues and the secondary issues that the Ravens have had, it's really a tribute to go against a pretty stacked team and just smack them around like that. It's just that simple with the Ravens. They played good. They didn't play amazing, but they played good. Played more than good enough. That touchdown pass to Hollywood Brown, that big arcing rainbow that Lamar Jackson threw, dude, that was beautiful. It's fucking beautiful. Broncos. As I said last week, that I was surprised that the Broncos were sitting atop of the division that hinged very much on their starting quarterback, on who their starting quarterback was, being Teddy Bridgewater. Well, given the fact that I said that we'd have to see how the Broncos would sit after this game and moving forward against better teams, we got a much better idea of seeing them play against a playoff caliber team. Teddy went for 7 of 16 for only 65 yards and a touchdown before being ruled out with a concussion at halftime. That's an entire half and he only got 65 yards. That's not a good day. I mean, figure double down on that number. You're talking 130 yards passing total. 14 of 32. If you just double everything. Ah, my God, that's terrible. It's not a good day for Teddy Bridgewater before he got ruled out. That's the entire half, and that's all he could put up against the Ravens defense. Then here comes Drew Lock, and as I said last week, he's reckless as hell with the ball. Drew went 12 of 21 for 113 yards and a pick. The Broncos defense held to a point, but in the end, they just didn't have the juice to stop a multi-headed hydra of the Ravens offense. So there it is. We now have a more clear picture of who the Broncos are. They have a lot more work than they realized, and I think they got a solid reality check of the fact of this game. It's the truth, man. It's 100% the truth, okay? This next game, very, very, very much highlighted game. And I don't know about anybody else, but I was sick and tired of fucking hearing about this goddamn game. Buccaneers versus the Patriots. I actually put on here, anyone else tired about hearing about this game? Brady versus Belichick? Shaking my fucking head. It was annoying, okay? Buccaneers, the issues and injuries in the secondaries is now showing its ugly face for sure, folks. Let's be honest here, because this is not in here, I don't believe. They picked Richard Sherman up, a guy who has literally just lost a step. He's not near as good as he used to be. He's not a terrible player, but they picked him up on fucking Wednesday, and he's on the field Sunday night. Okay? That is not enough time for a guy to learn a scheme. Richard Sherman's a smart fucking guy. He really is. Granted, he did some boneheaded shit during the summer. But he's a very intelligent person. But giving the guy basically 5 fucking days to figure out a defensive scheme and pray like Christ that he can fucking do it, come on. The issues and injuries in the secondary is showing its ugly face for sure now, folks. Between the injured players and the sheer complacency, which is the truth, the Bucs coming off that Super Bowl very complacent. The Bucs are showing struggles at this point in the season. The general rule of thumb is that you're only as good as where you finish. So if you start the season with the attitude like you've already won the next Super Bowl and you're just waiting to be handed the trophy, there's a high likelihood that you're going to get your ass handed to you. Yeah. They played a Patriots team that's terrible against the run, questionable against the pass, and nearly lost the game. Damn the weather. So as good as the Bucs defense was last year, this game definitely showed that there's some real problems with their defense at this time. Granted, there's injuries involved. Once you start losing starters, there's always problems, okay? I'm not condemning their defense. I think that defense is exceptionally stacked with their starters. But they've got cornerback injuries, they've got defensive line injuries, and their linebackers just can't make up for that. Excuse me. And either being emotions, which he's not normally known for being overly emotional in games, the weather, or just generally a bad game, Tom Brady looked like hell, to say the least. Throwing balls all over the place and generally just looking completely out of sorts without Gronkowski out there. He went 22 of 43 for 269 yards and no touchdowns or picks. And for Tom Brady, that's honestly a bad game. The Buccaneers were one errant kick away from losing to a lesser team at this point, and to be honest, I'm more than a little surprised at just how bad they actually looked. That's the truth. I expected the Buccaneers to go in there and just smack the Patriots. I really did. And the Patriots almost won the game. And the Patriots did something else that I'm going to talk about. Patriots, a 56-yard field goal attempt on a rainy night in Foxborough. That's where this loss ends. So close, yet so damn far. So last week I said that Mac Jones was dealing with the issue with the usual first-year growing pains. And I can honestly say that he more than lived up to the moment in this game. No, it wasn't a playoff game, but it was a huge game playing for the team with the previous multi-championship quarterback that was absolutely loved and adored by the fans that were still cheering for him while he was in their own stadium being on the other sideline. They literally ran the ball 8 total times for -1 yards, and they put it in the air with a rookie quarterback 42 fucking times. That screams how much faith that the Patriots have in him and what they're seeing from him. It was raining its ass off, and they just let him freely throw the ball like that. And he looked like a 15-year veteran quarterback for the most part. And he played pretty damn well. Not perfect, but he got the job done. Against last year's Super Bowl winners. Yes, their defense is still showing some pretty serious issues with stopping the run. And with the previous, just as with the previous 3 games, but between the poor play of the Bucs offense and the great defensive play, honestly, the Patriots defense finally showing a bit more life. They stood up fairly well against the Bucs and kept them out of the end zone through the air. That's the truth. They only got 1 touchdown, and the touchdown was on the ground. Belichick and his son, I don't know if anybody's seen that, but Bill Belichick kid was literally looking like a broken Chucky doll, just flopping his tongue everywhere. It was fucking crazy. Belichick and his son have a lot to sort out with their run defense, or they're just going to have many more games that just come down to this, sadly. Very, very true. Last game of the week, Raiders versus Chargers. Huge game of interest for me. AFC West division, first of all, which is typically a fairly difficult division, especially for the AFC side of things. Granted, there's more going on in the AFC this year, for sure. So, AFC West isn't just that dominant division anymore. Yeah. I actually have to grab my phone here because I forgot one very crucial fucking thing. My fault. Because I'm dumb. Yep, that's what I thought. Okay, so Raiders, Chargers. Raiders 14. Chargers 28. I forgot to put the score down. It was sitting there in the back of my head. The Raiders in the first half, when you have more penalty yards than offensive yards, that's just terrible. 53 penalty yards, 49 offensive yards. They were -3 yards. I mean, because of penalties, it doesn't reflect that way. But in actual true yardage, they were -3 yards for the team in the first half. I'm sorry, -4. It was bad. It was just a fucking horrible first half. They look completely out of sorts. Derek Carr at least stepped up in the second half, but going 21 of 34 for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick is just not great. The defense, albeit suffering from a ton of secondary shortages from injuries, still just didn't ever really get themselves stand make it didn't. Oh my god, I can't talk. The defense, albeit suffering from the secondary shortages from injuries, still just didn't ever really make themselves stand out wonderfully at all. First game this year that the Raiders look like they did 2 years ago, which is not a good thing for them. We'll see how they progress from here. I still think that the Raiders are a good team, but this game was 100% off script for them. It was just like absolutely nothing went right. I don't have words for how the fuck the Raiders went, because I figured it was going to be a close game, but I really honestly assumed that the Raiders were probably going to win by, a field goal, maybe even just 1 point, just depending on how the Chargers scored. Chargers first half very dominant on both sides of the ball against an extremely good team, in my opinion. Like I said, the Chargers and Justin Herbert absolutely look for real. Their defense looks solid. Their offense looks solid. And overall, they had a great game plan against the Raiders. They just simply outplayed them for 3/4 of the game. That's the truth, because the Raiders look good basically from about halfway through the third quarter through about halfway through the fourth quarter. So for about 1/4 of the game's time frame, the Raiders looked good. They got a couple of touchdowns. They actually looked like themselves again. The defense was actually kind of stopping the Chargers and making them, get rid of it, just punting the ball away and everything else, and just not good. Not good at all. And then all of a sudden, Chargers woke back up and said, fuck you. I'm going to whip your ass. They did. So that's week 4. That's week 4 as it sits, man. This was a bit of a shocker week. The Chargers doesn't surprise me that they beat the Raiders. The Buccaneers definitely surprised me with their barely winning against the Patriots. The Ravens, no surprise there. I honestly figured they would beat the Broncos, as much as I want to say that stacked-ass roster with the Broncos is enough to win. They just couldn't handle going up against a playoff caliber team. Sad for them. They got a lot of work to do. Packers beating the Steelers, no shock. Cardinals beating the Rams. I thought it was actually going to be a lot closer. Truth be told, I really did. Again, if I was a gambling guy, I'd have lost my ass this weekend. I thought it was going to be a lot closer game, but that Cardinals defense really stepped it up. Seahawks 49ers, truth be told, man, it's not a shocker to me. I'm actually shocked it was as close as it was. Panthers Cowboys, that was actually a shocker. It really was. I thought that was going to be way closer, because the Cowboys just took that game and just ran with it. Chiefs Eagles, not shocked. In any way, not shocked. Giants Saints, probably the most flooring game for me, truth be told, because I just did not see the Saints just losing to that team, period. Bills Texans, absolutely no shock there whatsoever, other than the fact that the Texans didn't even score. Washington Falcons, how do you be shocked at 2 trash teams? It doesn't matter who wins. Browns Vikings, well, the biggest shocker for me was the fact that it was such a defensive battle. Colts Dolphins. I'm shocked the Colts won, but at the same time, you've got Jacoby Brissett playing quarterback, and Carson Wentz actually didn't look horrible. So, okay. Lions Bears, no shock. Truthfully, they kind of went old school about it. The Jets beating the Titans, proving me right that the Titans have got a lot more defensive problems than people have been wanting to admit. And then the Bengals Jaguars, I'm just going to say that was another kind of big shocker for me, because the Bengals should have just cinched that fucking game down and just never given the Jags a chance. And they just showed a lot of weakness in that game on the defensive side. So what I was saying about the NFC. The Cowboys, if their defense can stay for real and they can maintain a run game, I think the Cowboys have got a really good shot at going after the Rams and going after the Cardinals. Okay? I really do. I 100% do. At the same time, if the Bucks don't sort their shit out really fucking quickly, and I mean, I know the Bucks were very up and down early in the season last year, but there was also no OTAs, there was no preseason, there was a whole lot of virtual learning basically for football teams, and that's not a good way to go. So the Bucks were on a huge learning curve with a completely rebuilt team. I mean, what do you say about that? But right now, considering what I saw out of the Buccaneers against the Patriots of all things, with a rookie quarterback and a questionable defense, and I mean, they just eked by a missed field goal. If the Bucks play like that against the Cardinals or against the Rams or against the Cowboys in the playoffs, they're going to lose. That's simple. They're just gonna lose. They will not stand, their defense will not stand a chance in hell against any one of those three offenses. Especially, I mean, most especially the fucking Cardinals and the goddamn Cowboys, because they both have very well established running games. And the fucking Bucks right now, they're kind of, I mean, they're just they're meh. I mean, when you start breaking down linebackers having to try to help cover an injury-riddled secondary, play action comes huge into it. Because all of a sudden you're running the ball down their throat, which they're going to try to stuff, and then that leaves the linebacker cinched way up towards the defensive line, and that just opens up the secondary and leaves the secondary with gaping holes everywhere because they've got very inexperienced, very not amazing players back there to cover guys who are very good. So, as unbiased as I always try to be, that's how it is. I mean, yeah. 2 of my 4 teams that I like, 2 of them played each other, Steelers and the Packers, but I expected the Steelers to lose that one anyway. The Saints lost, and they lost a game they should have won, so I mean, it is what it is. This is a very, very topsy-turvy week, man. Very, very topsy-turvy. But there we go. We'll get a week 4 picture. So there it is. So folks, I'll catch you in the next week, all right?